Hello, I'm in Urban Era, and I'm here to answer all of your modeling questions that you sent in the last couple of weeks. Thank you so much for sending them in, and I look forward to more. First off, Adam Palmer, Andy, and Cole ask, if you had the space, time, resources, money to build a layout the size of the La Mesa Club, Northlands, or even Miniature Wonderland, what would you model and why? Yeah, it's a fascinating question because the layouts mentioned are three completely different approaches to modeling extremely large layouts. Northlands is the spectacular canyon with these little trains running across these gigantic bridges. It's all very fanciful. It is extraordinary. Miniature Wonderland is a pastiche of different nations with recognizable landmarks and automated vehicles and amazing lighting. But the goal there is to see the world through model railroading. And then with the La Mesa Club, which is the wonderful layout in San Diego, is prototype modeling. Tehachapi Pass, a bunch of other recognizable Southern and Central Californian locations, to be as close to reality with some selective compression, of course, as possible. And all three of those are absolutely fascinating approaches. My personal one, I'd love to do like a more prototype modeling focused La Mesa Club approach, but probably, as some others have suggested, to basically build out the Alta entire system, to do from Oakland all the way to Mexico City and imagine what that incredible route would be. Now, if I wasn't prototype freelancing, for instance, if I wanted to do real world stuff, I think it would be fascinating to do either Eritrean narrow gauge, so you'd have these spectacular river canyons to model, or White Pass in Yukon in ON3 would be spectacular in that scale. Being able to capture the magnificence of Alaska like that would be incredible. But yeah, I think if it were just me personally, I would definitely do the entire Alta system because that would be a kick. All right, Christian Smith asks, will RDCs make an appearance on the Alta? I have an answer to your question, Christian. The answer is yes. So, a fun historical footnote. The Western Pacific Zephyrettes were purchased in 1950 and promptly retired in 1960. And so they came up on the used market and eventually went elsewhere. So in the world of the Alta, because we are very much an affiliated road, we bought them at cost and now run them throughout the California system. This is a Rapido model with DCC and sound, so this will become an Alta RDC, which we'll enjoy in a couple of years once I repaint it. Bob Loblaw asks, any tips for making the terrain on a layout look like it was there before the track rather than added after, even though we typically design the track before the terrain? Yes. I consider that one of my specialties when I build custom model railroads for clients. I kind of put on my Theodore Judah hat, I'm sure he wore a hat at some point in his life, and map out the actual route through the terrain that I'm supposed to go. A good example is Anchor Bay. We plotted out the real world coastal California route through the Coast Range first as a fictional prototype freelance idea, and then I went backwards and using on-field studies of Northern California, because I love visiting that area a lot, so I take a lot of reference pictures and note, how do these hillsides blend together? How do the rivers and creeks go? Where does the erosion happen? How does the ocean look? That sort of thing, right? So when you're crafting your layout, think about the terrain first, because obviously it was there before the train. Think about how a lot of rail lines are above flood lines, the 300-year flood tidal mark, if you will, in river canyons, so they don't wash away every time, right? So they're not directly next to the river most of the time, they're halfway up the hill, that sort of thing. Think about the biggest model railroad faux pas that I see is people instinctively put a tunnel where a cut should be. Think about and add as many cuts into the hillsides and fills through river valleys and other dips in the terrain. And if you do that cut and fill where you have the sinuous, beautiful, smooth line going through rough terrain, it'll immediately snap into realism and look extremely convincing. Icky Batty asks, what's the best spray paint for priming and painting models? Should I use miniature spray paint like Citadel or Army Builder spray paint, or something like Krylon or Rust-Oleum? Well, Icky Batty, here's the solution. I like to use Tamiya Fine Surface Primer for fine-scale models, like the trains themselves, because they have such fine detail. I think that this does the most stellar job of being able to do fine priming before you actually put a layer of good paint on. This comes in white, gray, and pink. You want the gray for the darker colors. Oh, it also comes in whole red as well. So you want the gray and whole red for your darker colors, and you want the pink if you're doing warm tones like orange, magenta, red, or yellow. I also use, for structures and other non-rolling stock stuff, I use Rust-Oleum 2X. Usually I'll buy the actual primer and use it as a base coat, upon which I will paint acrylic paint on top of this spray paint. So I'll be able to paint and weather it, make it look very realistic as I'm putting the structure together, versus relying completely on spray paint to achieve a finished model. Schrodinger's McCoy asks, what are the bits of Alta lore that you haven't been able to reasonably fit into videos or posts? Minute or indulgent history. Alternatively, are there pieces of lore that have more to them than we already know? Yes. So mostly in the video, I've just done that 2-sentence introduction that says I'm modeling a prototype freelance layout that connects Oakland with Mexico in 1968, last year of mainline steam. That's usually all I say. I have a wiki, which I will eventually make semi-public, non-editable by anybody but myself, but it will contain most of the history that has been meticulously researched over the since 2015, really. It also includes how I interchange with real-life railroads, what other fictional railroads exist, and a bunch of other information. It'll all be up on Patreon whenever that comes up. I'll also have a variety of other things that will come out both in videos and in Patreon and a bunch of other formats, including merch, which I'll have available. But I want to do something different. It won't just be like t-shirts or posters or things. It will actually be like, timetables and actual one-to-one scale artifacts from the Alta. I'm working with Jay and Alexander on various graphic design deliverables that will occur in the next couple of years that will satisfy those needs, in addition to custom decals for models and painting and lettering guides. So once you buy the decals, you'll be able to accurately apply them to the model. As far as lore, there's a lot more that's coming soon, especially as I finish more Alta painted pieces of rolling stock. I build more Alta structures. All of that will be included in future videos for you guys to enjoy. James Agnetta asks, how are fictional and other prototype freelance roads represented on my layout? Well, James, I've always loved other complementary prototype freelanced railroads. In fact, the whole idea of the Alta is directly inspired by Eric Bruman's Utah Belt. Directly. Like, he did such a flawless, or does rather, he's still alive, he does rather a flawless job of thinking logically about what type of realistic motive power and how it was used and how it ages and how it retires, which I absolutely love, and I intend to do that with the Alta as well. I have Gorian defeated boxcars. I had a friend a long time ago who, despite not liking Ayn Rand, modeled the John Galt lines, which I have similar feelings about Ayn Rand. But I kept the boxcar because he's a friend of mine and he did an excellent job painting it up. I would love to have an Alturas and Lone Pine boxcar for interchange, and frankly, a mutual friend is modeling an alternate reality California Pacific, and I can't wait to have some equipment from him.
No Suffern Hoboken Interstate?
Oh, I would love to have Suffern Hoboken Interstate Terminal. That would be absolutely fantastic. I will definitely roll in, especially lines that directly interchange with me and don't conflict with the Alta's history, and far away interchange partners that it won't matter. Like, the car can come from anywhere and be interchanged to the Alta from other partner, either real-life railroads or fictional railroads. I'm totally game. I would love to have some more of the contemporary prototype freelancers. I'd love to exchange rolling stock whenever I come out with my custom runs of rolling stock. So keep that in mind. If you're watching this and you have a prototype freelance model railroad and you have done a good job with your graphic design and deliverables for your own railroad, I'd love to talk and have a 1968 era appropriate piece of rolling stock to adorn the Alta with. James Agneta asks, Alta question. What would a modern era Alta look like? Or does Alta have a terminal date in which it's absorbed into another road? I got together with Jay and Alexander the other day, and we decided that we're going to write some alternative histories that are conflicting, and we'll have you decide what actually happens to the Alta after 1968. I have some really intricate ideas. Jay and Alexander have some great ideas to also implement into this. We'll write it as a long-form Patreon post that everybody can read as a public post so you can enjoy it and then vote on what happens in the end. It probably won't be pretty. As always, thank you so much for sending in questions. I'll probably have another call for questions late near December, so we'll have another AMA then. I really look forward to that, and I love your provocative questions. There's going to be so much more you'll learn about the Alta this fall and winter and next spring, so stay tuned for that. This has been An Urban Era. Thank you so much, and goodbye.